And if you can state your name for the record and then proceed.
For the record, Darren Rosario, Fire Chief, Hawaii Fire Department, County of Hawaii. Chair, if I could have a brief moment to make an opening statement before we take some questions.
Sure.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. I would like to thank you personally for the opportunity to speak to you today and present to you the Fire Department's fiscal year 2013-2014 budget proposal. The Hawaii Fire Department is the only county fire department in our state with fire-based EMS, or emergency medical services, or otherwise known as emergency ambulances that provide treatment and transport of our community members to the hospital. We are the second only fire department, along with the Fire Department of Kauai, that provides ocean safety services integrated into the fire department. On emergency response, our community members, businesses, and visitors receive a response from a top class of fire, EMS, hazardous materials, rescue, and ocean safety professionals. We also manage our own dispatch center, handling all 911 calls outside of law enforcement. I stand behind the men and women of our department and proudly say that they are the best in what they do. I must emphasize that the Hawaii Fire Department is the primary provider of quality advanced life support medical care to our residents in our rural communities. When called upon, our members has even responded to the emergency rooms of our rural communities to provide treatment modalities that are critical, such as placing an airway in a patient with difficulty breathing, establishing an intravenous line, which is the life support line in our keikis, very difficult treatment modality to do. And a lot of people ask, why do we do that? We don't respond to the emergency rooms. Well, a lot of people say it's not your job. It's something that the state should be taking care of. They should be able to provide the treatment. But the bottom line is we do it because we're firefighters. As a firefighter, this is not a job to us. This is our calling. We do it because we care for the community, and it's our job to provide for the care of our community. Our community is protected by 20 career fire stations. 15 of these stations also provide advanced life support care with our medics. 2 stations also provide rescue response in addition to their fire duties. 2 stations also provide hazardous materials responses along with their fire duties. 11 of our county beaches and 1 state beach, Hapuna, is protected by our Ocean Safety Division. We are the second largest fire department in the state. However, we are the leanest when it comes to personnel assigned and on duty and also of equipment. We are the only fire department with unfunded firefighter positions, the only fire department in the state with unfunded firefighter positions. We are the only fire department with volunteer members who man 24 additional fire companies within their own communities. This allows us to expand our services and reach out to those areas that are far from the career stations. I have a template that I wanted to share with the council, if that's okay. The document that's being passed out is just something that I wanted to elaborate when I say we are the second largest but most lean as far as a department. I'll take some time with it. Wait for one more copy. Okay. If you look at this document, what we did is just make a comparison across the 4 county fire departments, just to give you an idea of where the Hawaii Fire Department stands. If you look at personnel, and not meaning any disrespect to our volunteers, because they're a big part of it, if we exclude the volunteer personnel that's on that list there, generally Hawaii County, Maui County, and Kauai County, if you look at those numbers, we run about 500 personnel. Maui County at 315, Kauai County at 193, Honolulu City and County Fire Department, Honolulu Fire Department, just under 1,200 uniformed personnel. If we look at total companies, that's across the board. 20 career stations for Hawaii County, 14 for Maui, 8 for Kauai, and 44 for Honolulu City and County. That's just the career stations. But what you look under there as far as companies, we basically have 1 company per station. And in comparison to City and County of Honolulu and also Maui, they have some stations with dual companies, ladder companies, rescue companies, and hazmat companies. As you can see, we're the only fire department that runs 15 EMS ambulance units across the state. But what I wanted to highlight is, although our numbers are quite large in comparison to Maui and Kauai, their county budget is roughly the same. In fact, Maui is above ours at 31 million, and Kauai was the same. And these are numbers from last fiscal year at 22.6 million, and also Honolulu Fire Department at just under $100 million. If you look at the incidents we respond to, although we have a population on Hawaii Island of nearly 200,000 residents, we responded to 22,378 incidents, compared to Maui County with just under 9,000 incidents, Kauai County at 5,000 incidents, and Honolulu with a population just under 1 million at 48,000. If we average the amount of costs per person, this is just residents, to our budget, we run about $122 per person in comparison to $200 for Maui and $336 for Kauai. So I just wanted to push this out to you, that we have been doing a lot more with a lot less. And if you also look on under incident log, community service calls, 1,700 calls of our department members, men and women out there providing calls just for community. These are our standbys, our requests for training, education, just a simple call as, I think something's wrong with my oven, not sure. It's an electrical call, but we still respond. That's a community-based call. If you look at Oahu with 1 million residents, they went to 1,800. So as far as taking care of our community, I think there is no comparison. During the past 4 fiscal years, the fire department assisted the county administration with reducing the overall costs to slow down the effects of the global recession. The previous 4 years resulted in having to make very difficult, critical decisions, which included the unfunding of firefighter positions. We also deferred critical equipment repair and apparatus replacements or purchases. We also had to support the furloughs of our HGA and UPW members. We also limited critical growth necessary to properly protect our community, businesses, and visitors. These measures were needed to avoid the closures of fire stations and avoid layoffs. We became part of the inevitable. Public safety organizations were now subject to cuts. This was unheard of across the country in decades, if anything, in the entire history of our nation. Large fire departments across the country laid off personnel. Detroit, Sacramento, New Jersey, and Phoenix, and so forth. This is just a small sample of the large departments that actually laid off and closed down stations. Our fire department lived up to the challenge to do more with less. Our personnel went above and beyond, working extra hours without compensation to do quality grant applications, and working with proud foundations such as the SARE Foundation to provide additional equipment to the men and women of our department and also to our community. I'm proud to say that the fire department has been very successful in most of our grant applications, although the grants are becoming limited and a lot more restrictive lately. Our members take pride in the equipment that they have, and they really take care of it, extending the life expectancy of all of our equipment. We also do innovative things, such as a program developed by Prevention Battalion Chief Gantier Andrade, who's in the audience today, in which the fire department will provide 3,000-gallon fire apparatus tankers in our communities to offset the new fire code, which required communities who do not have a built-in water firefighting infrastructure to provide for their own catchment systems with a fire department connection. This would have transferred the cost of this to our community members in excess of, say, about $5,000 for a fire department connection to their water tank. The water tank had to meet a certain size, which might have meant for some homeowners to increase their water tank capacity. And also they had to provide for access to the water tank. As you know, most people like to hide the water tank, put it behind the house. Some are even under the house. But the fire code was specific that we would have to be able to get to the tank. So through some innovative designs and research and a lot of hard work, Chief Andrade was able to discuss this with Mayor Kinoy, and we came up with a program that we would provide tankers throughout the communities. My staff, as you can see, they are working hard to maintain services and come up with innovative ideas to provide for our community. But we are no longer able to maintain the status quo and provide for the growing services that our community demands. Upon my appointment as fire chief of this great organization, I immediately met with Mayor Kinoy, and he asked me a very simple question: what do you need to protect our community? I stated that we needed to upgrade our fire apparatus fleet. We needed to put warm bodies in our vacant positions. We also needed to start looking at expanding the services of our community. The reason why the most important was improving our fleet maintenance is that NFPA 1901, which is a National Fire Protection Association standard for automotive fire apparatus, mandated back in 1991 that no apparatus should have an open seat for its firefighters to the elements. Most of our apparatus had open cabs, and this was not standard since 1991. Most of our apparatus were at 20 years of age, in an industry that requires apparatus to be changed out at 15 years of service. Mayor Kinoy, he supported our projects and approved the purchase of 5 fire pumpers throughout these last 2 years, 4 with county funding and 1 through a CDBG grant. The administration was not able to neither fund the vacant firefighter positions nor expand services due to the current fiscal state of the county. However, we did get approval to scrutinize in our budget to at least start to hire some new firefighter recruits to start to put a dent into our vacancies, which were at 50 uniformed personnel. During this current budget cycle, our team laid out our needs to the administration. The message was the same. We needed to keep on updating our fleet of equipment. We needed warm bodies in our positions, but we needed to start planning for expansion of services. We need to expand our service areas such as ocean safety, dispatch, our maintenance shop, and our 2-man fire stations, of which 4 exist across the county. In this past year, we met with our budget managerial team of the Department of Finance, as well as with Mayor Kinoy and his staff to discuss the needs of the fire department. They fully supported everything I was presenting to them, but the message was the same. The budget was very tight, and it was unlikely we'd be able to fund most, if not any, of our budget proposals. We were tasked with submitting a status quo budget, and with no increases. However, it was recommended to submit supplemental budget requests. Even with the directive to submit a status quo budget, the fire department did not. we did actually propose a budget that was significantly higher from last year based on very specific items. The first one is our overtime has increased every year, and we have always gone over budget on overtime. And I directly relate that to our vacant positions. We are a public safety organization that needs these positions to be filled on a daily basis. Ocean safety, dispatch, EMS, and critical fire areas. We also provided increases to cover the approved lease purchases of our apparatus, the anticipated salary increases for the termination of our furlough program, and funding to offset our rising maintenance costs that was due to increased workload due to the furloughs, which increased our department's outsourcing of critical repairs. So when we outsource a repair, it does cost tremendously more. The fire department also submitted the following supplemental budget requests: replacement of 2 fire apparatus to meet the NFPA 1901 standards. This would be for Honoka'a and Ke'au. A 3,000-gallon tanker for the area of South Kohala, North Kohala, Waimea area districts. And also funding of our vacant, unfunded positions. On February 28, we received our budget back from the budget administrator. All of our supplemental budgets were denied, and our budget increase proposals were significantly reduced. Basically, the message was the same. They agree with the purpose and the need for everything we asked for, but was told that funding was tight, the budget was tight, and we had to take a greater, sharper look at everything. We do recognize that the county is not in a financial state to provide everything that we're asking for. To be effective and accountable, we will need to plan for future expansion of our fire and ocean safety services in a fiscally responsible way. I believe that the county is recovering financially and look forward to being able to plan for the future with all of you. In talks with community members, requests for the expansion of ocean safety coverage at Punalu'u Beach Park and planning of expanded fire services in South Kona have been the hotter community topics across the island. As your fire chief, I humbly ask that you support the men and women of our department in providing the services this island community deserves. I ask for your support in providing funding for the fire apparatus, funding to provide adequate coverage of Punalu'u Beach Park, as well as funding our department to fill our vacant fire positions, at least for the later part of the fiscal year, because it'll take some time to actually hire people. We also ask for your support of our CIP projects to replace the Kawailani Fire Station and our future expansion projects. Before I close, I did want to respond to Councilmember Ford's request to Mayor Kinoy this morning to evaluate the feasibility of continuing the employee furloughs. I know that was a very tough thing to present to the mayor this morning, and I'm sure you could have felt the island-wide gasp of all of our government workers when you mentioned it. But I wanted to share with all of you some truth as far as a furlough program for the Hawaii Fire Department. We are a public safety organization that was very much decimated by the furlough program. Our dispatchers, water safety officers, mechanics, and office staff is all part of unions that required a furlough program. As a public safety organization, there is no place for furloughs of our workers. Our mechanics union agreed to a furlough program where they actually were furloughed on a floating scale. However, with our age fleet, this required 2 mechanics to be off. And what happened is every time a mechanic was on furlough, we still had critical repairs that needed to be done, and this required calling back the mechanic on furlough day at overtime. This happened very often. Our dispatch and ocean safety personnel were not furloughed per se, given a day off, but they received a significant pay reduction. In agreement with the union, along with the pay reduction, they were given what was called supplemental time vacation and such. Because we are a public safety organization, positions need to be filled. Our organization does not provide for relief positions. So when a dispatcher, both of these sections, ocean safety and dispatching, already had existing vacancies. When a dispatcher or an ocean safety person takes off on their STO, we needed to find someone who was on the day off to bring them back on overtime to cover that shortage. And then when that person took their STO, we called back the other person to come in and cover that. So the furlough program for the fire department did not reduce costs, it significantly increased the cost, and subsequently the reason why our overtime budget has expanded, has been exhausted. So I just wanted to bring that out as far as the fire department. In closing, I do want to emphasize that the administration of Mayor Kinoy has been very supportive of everything that I've brought to the table in his office. However, without proper funding, it's difficult to realize fruition of everything that I've been asking for. I ask to you, our council, please work with the administration, look at alternatives to provide the necessary funding, and we look forward to working with all of you to help our department, help our community. And I'm open to questions at this time. And once again, thank you humbly for the opportunity to discuss our budget with you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Kern?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Chief Rosario, and your entire department for what you guys do. I love this handout that you gave. It puts things in perspective. This is amazing. So basically, from what I'm seeing here, what you're saying is you had a lot more requests. The budget just is what it is. We're basically at a status quo to hold. Same amount of positions, everything else. We need to get very creative, increase revenues, so hopefully 6 months from now we can get into another conversation and see what we can start to improve. I know Punaluu Beach. I know Mark Collins. He's a waterman. He's a real, like, there's guys that get in the water, and then there's a waterman. Doesn't matter what position you put them in. He's a tremendous asset down there, but even him on his own, he's putting himself in danger every time he goes out there. And I know he's been in some vicarious situations and has been put down. So I don't know if we can maybe move. First, I'm sure you guys have looked at this, but there's other beaches that aren't quite the same dangers. To maybe move somebody down there. It's that place you get in trouble so quick. I spent a lot of time at Puiki. I've surfed around the island. I've night dived all around this island. That's one of the places you get in trouble like that. You know, Puiki, you get in trouble, but you got some room. A lot of people in the water. We help out. I'm out there. Hey, you might want to swim this way, whatever it takes. We need that. I'll do whatever we can do to help support you guys, get the apparatus that we need, get the warm bodies in the seats, get continued ocean safety. All your guys that I've ever talked to, from the lifeguards to firefighters, it is a calling. It's what you guys do. And when you were saying that, I was getting chicken skin.
Thank you.
Because the heart's in it, you know what I mean? So I'm here to do whatever we can do and talk story with trying to maybe switch some of those positions around. And we have great people. So thank you for what you guys do, and hopefully we can talk next year in a lot better position. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And just to emphasize on the Punaluu topic, since you talked about, our staff has looked at alternatives for that area there. It was a program that was shared. That I know that the intent was to at least get it started because there was nothing there. But I stand before you and say that the fire chief that you have currently is someone that does not look at starting programs to just start. I look at, if we're going to start something, let's do it right from the very beginning. Punaluu has been a struggle since it was started, but it does have a purpose. And it's such a very important topic that we've had discussions with the union, Hawaii Government Employees Association. In fact, the union steward is in the audience today because it is a very, they view it as a very critical area for just the same thing there. The movement of personnel to cover that area, it's not going to happen because every beach really is, we're stretched thin. There's days off that the ocean safety personnel have to take, so we don't have any extra bodies to send out. And we've done a lot. We've done ocean safety training in the community of Kau to hopefully get members that live within Kau to apply and get the positions there. But we look forward to expanding the services there. It's really important to the area as well as I'm not sure if anyone talked to you folks individually about it, but it is an area of hot topic for the Kau area.
Thank you. Councilmember Eoff?
Thank you, and thank you for the excellent presentation, and thank you to all of your men and women, and especially volunteers who help out in your department. If we were to add back, or find a way to add back some of the, say, the most important positions and monies for apparatus and the ocean safety, do you have a rough estimate of what that total would add to your budget?
Sure.
Just happen to have it.
If I may start with ocean safety. The average salary for a full-time position is about $40,000. And obviously, if we look at a place such as Punalua and expanding the services there, I look for at least 2 additional positions there. And this is to provide adequate coverage of 2 ocean safety, water safety officers in the tower every day. Currently, it's manned by 2 part-timers who work different shifts between Monday to Friday, covering just 1 person on duty per day. Ocean safety is an area that we can go into more detail later, but looking towards expanding services through a jet ski program, which is roughly comes out to about
$60K for equipment.
it actually has its own folder. $132,000 for startup, based with having 2 personnel assigned to the power watercraft there. It's about $12,000 for a rescue power watercraft or rescue jet ski. $7,800 for the equipment, the trailer, additional hardware that goes along with it. $600 just for the PPE, that's the fins, wetsuit, such. And then a minimum of 2 personnel assigned to that craft, and that's at an annual salary of $40,000. So basically $132,000 startup, and then a continuing salary of $80,000 for the 2 positions. We're looking at providing this program with a minimum of 2 jet skis, because we always want to have 1 as a backup. Our battalion chief of special operations, Gerald Kosaki, we did send him to Kauai, which has is the other fire department with ocean safety, and did the research. They have a very successful jet ski program, and most of the information that we got from that provided the information that I was able to give to you folks on this day here. And that's on ocean safety as far as expanding services, roughly about $40,000 per position.
40, so that's 80 plus 132,000?
132 was the initial cost, inclusive of the 80,000 salaries.
The 80. Oh, okay. So the 132,000 is the total
The startup
of all
cost.
the things you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay. Get it?
Includes the jet ski.
Yeah.
And the trailer and the truck and everything.
Okay.
And because your question was if we could provide for everything, if I'm not misunderstanding. Also on the ocean safety side, which is an area that has been neglected over the last a lot of years, and then they were incorporated into the fire department in 2007, and we've tried really hard to get them up to standards and give them the equipment that they need. We still have 7 towers that are in need of replacement. They are currently staffed with wooden towers across the county. These are at Honoli'i, Richardson, Onikahakaha, Carl Smith, Lele'iwi, Aha Lanui, and the Kahalu'u South Tower. We're in the process of replacing these towers with the Surveyor towers, or those nice white towers that you see across there. Let's just say that they run about $50,000 once we're pretty much at the end of doing everything, shipping and contracting the cost of putting them into place.
Chief, could I just make a real quick comment? Because I bought one of those towers. They are $50,000, and the shipping crate is $10,000 all by itself, but it can handle 3 towers. And so when we used to have contingency funds, we got 3 at one time.
Thank you. And then if you look at the big picture, only 7 of our 12 beaches are manned every day. The other beaches are manned on weekends, holidays, and during school breaks. And we have one beach at Spencer that is just strictly on the weekends and holidays and not covered during the spring, the vacations of our schools. And then Punaluu, once again, is just Monday to Friday, no coverage on the weekends. I think in a global side, if we're looking, planning down the future, because this is not something we can do this year, next year, or even within the next 5 years with the budgets that we have, is that I think beach, Hawaii County, I mean, we have visitors coming at any time during the year, and the beaches need to be covered year-round by staff there all the time.
Councilmember Eoff, you still have the floor?
As far as expanding fire services, if I could just touch base on that, just to give you an idea. Firefighter recruits annual salary currently is about $44,000. That's for a recruit. There has been very much discussion on expanding services such as opening a new station in South Kona. The cost of a new fire station construction cost currently, if we look at the newly constructed Makale fire station, is at about $7 million. The salaries for one fire captain, well, this would be times 3, but on a daily basis, we have one fire captain assigned, one fire equipment operator, which is the driver of the apparatus, and 2 firefighters to meet NFPA 1710. This is the minimum standard for staffing. We'd like to have 5 assigned to a truck, and I'm just giving you the minimums. This comes out to $235,000 for one crew. We have 3 crews that need to be assigned to a fire station, so that comes out to a $700,000 annual cost just to provide the salaries for the personnel for the station. A fire apparatus currently costs $600,000. And if we were looking at, this is for South Kona, an area inclusive of many off-road areas, a 4x4 vehicle, which roughly around $45,000. So the total startup cost of, say, a station in South Kona would be nearly $8.345 million. And then a recurring annual cost of $700,000 for salaries alone. I was not able to give you what is generally the operating cost of a fire station. I don't have that figures, but there is a general cost of operating a fire station as far as electricity and other items, water, infrastructure items there. As far as our fire department across the board, of our 20 fire stations, we have 4 stations that do not meet NFPA 17 standards for manning. 5 stations actually. 4 of these stations only have 2 personnel, a fire equipment operator and a firefighter. This is at Paradise Park, Lapoihoi, Hawaiian Ocean View Estates, and the Waikoloa Fire Station. Our station in North Koala has 3 firefighters assigned, and once again, the minimum standard according to NFPA 1710 is 4 personnel. Obviously, as you can see, this is a lot of positions, and once again, something that we're not asking for in this budget or next budget, but we need to just start making small steps to make increases. There was a reason all of these stations were initially started, Paradise Park, Lapoihoi. They started with 1 person on duty per day. And a lot of these stations were only open till 11 o'clock at night, and that was to reduce insurance costs in the community. Once again, as your fire chief, I cannot sit before you and say we're going to do something just to reduce costs for insurance purposes. If we're going to open a station, we need to do it the right way from the beginning, because these stations have been this way for 30 years, if not anything, with inadequate manning. And I've been asked, why don't you just close it down? Well, it's hard for me to go to Lapoihoi and say, after 20 years, we're going to close down the station because we only have 2 personnel there. I think the approach is to increase the capacity of this station. But once again, I fully understand it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It cannot happen overnight. It wouldn't be fiscally responsible. But something that we need to start planning for the future moving forward. Public safety does cost a lot of money.
And I kind of wanted to, not to interrupt you, but I kind of wanted to separate the more long-range needs to what kinds of things did you request for this budget that were not not funded?
Okay,
And
well-
approximately how much you would need to meet some of your emergency needs for this next fiscal
Okay,
year?
the critical items that we see, even looking at our budget now and how scrutinized it is because of the financial state of the county, I would like to see the 2 apparatus replacement be approved. We've come up with a great program, which is a lease purchase. And I know sometimes it doesn't look favorable, but the lease purchase allows us to pay basically about $23,000 per month versus $1.3 million at one time for the 2 apparatus. It's projected over 5 years. It's a national trend that's occurring across the nation as far as apparatus replacement. So those 2 apparatus roughly at about $280 somewhat $1,000 for the projected cost once those items come in, and that is the approach we've taken for the last 4 apparatus. The same goes for our 3,000 gallon tanker that is needed. It was part of a program that we worked out with the mayor. That's about $300,000 for an apparatus of that size for a tanker. But that's something also we have been working with the Department of Finance to see if we can do a lease purchase also for that vehicle there. I would say at $300,000, we're probably looking at about somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 per month as far as a lease purchase. But I'm just saying that off the top of my head. Our financial crews will probably have the exact amounts, but roughly I just looked at about half the cost of what we're paying for the apparatus. We discussed Punaluu already.
How many ocean safety people do you need down there?
For Punaluu, I'm asking for 2 positions there. And as far as the fire service is it's $44,000 per position that we can get approved. I like to sit there and say I wish we can fill every single position. We currently have a recruit class targeted to start on May 1st of 13 personnel. We'll need an additional recruit class next year to fill the rest of our vacancies that come up.
He said 12, right? 12.
13 on May 1st.
13.
Mhm.
And then
We had 12 initially, and then we had a resignation this month, so we put in an extra request for the additional person and was granted that request.
Karen?
Okay, no, thank you very much for giving us some numbers.
Thank you.
Councilmember Willie?
Hi. Thank you very much again for your presentation and all your department's efforts. I would like to see that for your long-term vision, if you wouldn't mind making a copy. What is it that we need long-term to really bring us up to where we should be? I mean, in my view, you can just keep cutting and cutting, and you stretch your department and impose on them, and you can only do that so many years, so much time or days. And I feel like we're coming to the end of that, and then you start losing people that are really good because it's just too much strain. I also agree with you in terms of the furloughs, so just so you know where I stand strongly. I just, in terms of a few specific questions, is like on Hapuna, is that one where, isn't there one, are we in need of an additional tower at Hapuna Beach?
The Hapuna Beach is a state beach, which
Okay.
we're provided state funding for the beach for
Okay.
a certain amount of personnel that's there. There was a request from former council member Pete Hoffman to cover the north end of the beach, which is primarily sits in front of the
Right.
Hapuna Beach Hotel. Our request for additional funding from the state was denied. In fact, as you know, the state has been trying to have reduce the amount of funding that they provide us to
Right.
cover that beach there. What we did is, once again, trying to do more with less. We actually purchased a surveyor tower. It has been, I will share, a nightmare this past year to try to get the tower placed on the beach because we had to go through so much
rigmarole.
hearings and everything, our special use permit. We just got finally cleared to start doing that, but we had to, there's some other small steps that we have to take, but we're very close to putting that tower on the beach. The tower is already bought. It was delivered. It's sitting at the South Kohala Fire Station. We already have a shipper ready to go once we give them the green light. And unfortunately, we don't have any positions from the state for that. So the rest of the Hapuna coverage to cover that tower. So that would be someplace that if we had additional funding available, at least for another position to cover that north end of the beach there.
Okay, because, yeah, I mean, in my view, I worked a lot on the transit accommodation tax and just studying, and I was always using your department as my example when I testified. I mean, originally, we got 95% of those funds, and the idea was that the state would get 5%, that we carry the burden of providing these services, whether those services come on Monday or Saturday, and that you can take a look at what happened in South Kona, where a person kayaking dies. One death, one injury, each of these times is such a really just, it impacts our economy so much that I just feel like we're just running on luck sometimes and watching like Mr. Enrique's testimony and support. So, you know, I really feel that this, looking at things and a little by little, I'm into we've got to figure it out so we move forward in a big way a lot sooner than before I'm off this council. So I just want you to know I'm going to work hard to make those things happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And just on ocean safety, it's like fire. The number one way that we protect our community and visitors is through education. And we're not able to do that on the ocean safety side. And what I mean by education is that if we're properly manned, we have 2 personnel in the tower, then they can begin to do their beach patrol. And beach patrol is making sure there's nothing that can harm anyone on the beach, but also providing education. Hey, this is a rip current here. Stay out of this area. This is a bad area. Because a lot of the visitors is the ones that get into trouble. But on a daily basis, we're manning our towers single because we're short-staffed. And they have to stay in the tower. They can't even take their lunch break. And they're not able to do the critical beach patrol, which is the education portion. We like to keep people out of trouble instead of rescuing them from trouble.
So what I want to see is what that would cost in order to get to that level of preventative care for on our, whether ocean safety and otherwise. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Onishi was waiting for you and a letter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Onishi. Chief, I am really distressed to hear that the furloughs impacted your department in the manner it did. It was always the intention of the past council, certainly it was my intention, and we stated that public safety positions would not be impacted by the furlough. And I did not mean just the firefighters and the police officers, but your support services, whether it was HGA or some other union. It was always my understanding, and obviously I'm wrong, that whatever you needed for support of public safety, police, fire, civil defense, and even the prosecutor's office would not be impacted by the furlough. So that's my misunderstanding, and I don't know what to do about that. I do support furloughs. It can give us, the mayor gave us a number of over $4 million, and I've always operated on, I think, 2.7 or something like that. But $2.7 million, if we pulled it out of the non-public safety, I'm choosing the lower number because I'm not covering public safety at all, or any of your support personnel, would go a long way in making a dent in this problem that we've got in your department, not to mention the police department. And so that's why I'm supporting the furlough, but it's not a furlough for anybody in public safety. We can't afford it, obviously. And the fact that you're running all the overtime in your department, it to me just defeats the entire purpose of, saving money here to put it over there. I realize we're robbing Peter to pay Paul, but I have said about 100,000 times the primary duty of government is public health, safety, and welfare. And I've always, as you know, your whole staff knows, I've been very supportive of the fire department, especially. So I still stand by a furlough, but not for you guys, not for the police department, not for your support personnel. I will do what I can to see if we can, as a council, get some of this stuff taken care of. And I will tell the council now that the chief has supplied me with the updated information on apparatus. The new people won't have seen this. I will have it by the May 5th meeting for distribution so that you can see what we're doing, what the chief is doing. I have to commend you and your department, your grant writers, for getting all of that equipment, not only the new equipment, but used equipment shipped over here for us. I appreciate that. I know your people appreciate it, and certainly we need to protect our personnel. This council really needs to look at, in my opinion, one of the primary things we need to look at is that fund balance, and pull some money out of there and get it into the fire department. That's all I'll say about that at this moment in time. But I am really depressed that what happened to your department happened. That was never my intention. So we'll see what we can do. I doubt that the mayor is going to do a furlough. That's my own personal opinion. He's never told me yes or no, but he didn't jump up and down with joy at my suggestion, so I suspect it won't happen. But we've got to make some changes here. We've got to do something else. I'll yield at this time.
Thank you. If I could make a quick comment on
Sure,
the furloughs
go
there,
ahead.
because there's one big area that we always seem to overlook, and it's the office staff. They're not public safety, but they're a big part of they are public safety. They're part of our department. And I wanted to share with you folks that this is what happens on a furlough day. We had to institute a very strong directive that no personnel would be allowed into our office on a furlough day. This was hard to do. I can tell you though what happens throughout the rest of the week and on the weekends. If they pull in and they see my car, they'll pull right out. If they know I'm not there, our personnel are working. Our office staff is working nights, they're working weekends, they're coming in early, and they're not claiming compensation because it's not allowed. All of their overtime has to be approved by me. And it's been very difficult for all of our workers. They're burnt out. They're working very long hours, and I just wanted to publicly, because this is on a record, is show my appreciation for them. Most of them that are here in the audience, sitting back there. I never supported a furlough program. I'm being very honest with you, because I knew what would happen is we'd have a lot of people working, doing the work and just not being compensated for it. I just wanted to share that on the record.
I truly appreciate that. Again, it was never my intention to furlough anybody in your department or the police department at all. And I'm really distressed about this, but I can't do anything about the history. Maybe we can do something about the future. Thank you.
Tough decisions in tough times.
Thank you. Councilmember Onishi?
Thanks. Hi, Chief.
Hi.
You mentioned about Punaluu, about the 2 positions that you need for the safety officers. Right now, you have 2 part-time positions. So do we an increase of 2 full-time positions, or what are you looking at? Or combined?
I just threw out 2 if we're looking at, the top of the staffing there. We would like 2 personnel in the tower every day, so that's increasing the services to 7 days a week. If we just look at that area, there's always generally somebody on a day off, either through their vacation, personal leave time, sick leave. And once again, I threw out the 2 personnel because it once again provides for that relief position, because in Ka'u, it's very difficult to get somebody out there to Ka'u in a timely fashion to provide for that. But I look for full-time positions so that it can adequately staff. We have 2 part-time positions there already, so either upgrading the 2 part-time positions to full-time and providing 2 more positions to provide the coverage there.
So you're talking about like 4,
I would look at
total 4 positions.
The equivalent of 3 full-time positions would probably cover that area there.
3. Okay. Yeah, because what I understand is that the Pahalos Fire Station is about, 20 minutes, or how far away is it from Punaluu Beach?
No, not 20 minutes. It's just down the road, actually. Yeah, just down the...
So about...
Yeah, 5 minutes away.
Because someone told me it was like a little bit longer than that, but then...
The medic from Na'alehu station, I'd say, is about 20 minutes, yeah.
Okay, that must have what they meant then, because I guess, does Pahala have a medic?
No, our Ka'u fire station was actually split into two. They're one company. The fire personnel is located at Pahala, and the EMS personnel is in Na'alehu.
Okay, so that's what they must have meant then, okay. And then something about even with the helicopter, it takes about another 20 minutes to get down there?
The average flight time has been about 14 to 17 minutes of flight time.
Yeah, okay. Good. So, okay, so basically three full-time positions you would need, and that would be able to cover 7 days a week.
Correct.
Okay.
With some overage on that, so there'll probably be some, I'm asking for here because I know eventually we're going to get to a point here.
Right. Okay. And then also, because I know, at this legislature session, they were talking about trying to extend that sunset date for the liability, right? And then it was, I guess, deferred because they said it's not going to happen until next year. So if it does happen, that means counties would be responsible and would be liable. And then that's where I think one of the House or senators mentioned that, we can buy insurance, right? The county can buy, would be on higher costs, right? So I know that we got to push where we have the legislature to get that exempt where, the county won't be liable for that part. So I think, councilors, we need to work on that. The other thing I wanted to ask you is that, you mentioned about overtime, like you exceeded your budget for overtime. Okay. And we have, 3 more months to go, right? Or 4 more months. But have you folks ever weighed between, maybe getting, or what's the difference between having manpower? What would be the cheaper costs? Having manpower there or still providing that overtime or extra overtime for you folks?
As far as budgetary, I would defer that to someone with financial background. I can share with you as a fire chief, I want the warm body in the position. Because what's happening in our department right now is like any place. When you start giving people overtime, in the beginning, it's a wonderful thing to have. But I'm sharing this honestly with you. What I'm starting to see is problems of our employees affecting their families. We have employees stuck at work for long periods of time, and I need to send our men and women home to their families. It doesn't make sense for you to get a job, get paid well, not be for your family, get a divorce, and then half your paycheck is going one way, but it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and that's true. Yeah. And that's why too, for me, I guess for the past 3 years when Chief Oliveira was there, when I found out EMS, your majority of, or maybe 80 or 90% of your calls is for EMS services, and it's not beefed up where your manpower, right, for MICTs and so forth, you folks are real low on those positions, right? And that's where your overtime is, guys working double shifts or whatever. And so, that would be a major section for if say we could get you some manpower, would that be where we can funnel some money to get those hires?
Our EMS, you're correct in that a bulk of our overtime was attributed to our shortages in the paramedic or mobile intensive care technicians. We just graduated a class that will fill all of our vacant positions, and on the EMS side, that's state funded. It has nothing to do with the county funding there, and all of our state positions are filled. The thing that we have as far as working with the state is we're trying to expand services. This year the talk was about strong talks for Makale, but the area of need right now is Paradise Park. And we were denied. We put in a request for Makale as well as Paradise Park, but was denied on the state side for EMS. And what we do is we look for ways within the county to provide for that expanded needs that the state is not able to provide for. A large portion of our overtime has also been just to cover the day-to-day minimum staffing that's needed just to have a truck in operation. So I'm not even talking about NFPA 1710. I'm talking about showing up to work at Keoho and not even having the two people to be on the truck. because we're short. We have unfunded, we have vacant positions, we have personnel on extended military leave, on extended sick leave, and we're trying every day on the west side, we're recalling just to fill the station. As well as you know, at the very beginning of the fiscal year, we had those large brush fires in Kona, and I commend my staff. A lot of them came back to protect the homes that were affected, and they did a great job. No homes are affected, no homes are lost, no lives are lost, but those fires came at a very, very hefty price that was not part of our budget, but had to come out of our budget, and that ate up a lot of our overtime in the very beginning of the fiscal year. And then also the overtime attributed with our furlough program.
Okay. I guess my next question would be like, okay, if we could provide you, say, with some funding, either for manpower or for the apparatus, how fast, like say we can get you, like say, $1 million for this coming fiscal, would you, how would you be able to, or when would the community expect to see results?
Results as far as the apparatus, our bid specifications are pretty much ready to go. They would go out for an invitation for bid. If it was just $1 million, that would be one truck. And a little bit
but if we lease it, like you say.
Oh yeah, leasing.
Right, because leasing would be cheaper, right?
Yes.
Right. So if we do the leasing program, you could maybe get at least 2 trucks, right?
On a leasing program, we could get upwards of closer to three.
Right. So with $1 million, yes, right? So that's what I'm looking at. Like so, but then also say we could split, or you could split, like to get some more manpower too. Is that?
And as I earlier alluded to, that we're looking for funding towards a later part of the year. One of the things that our department was hit by is because we're a fire-based EMS department providing EMS services. Our personnel are trained through Kapiolani Community College as EMTs at a minimum, and then later on they progress to the mobile intensive care technician. KCC notified us actually this occurred several years ago, that the minimum entry student would need to have English 100 and medical terminology. This was something that we went back and forth with KCC, and we got several deferrals of those minimum qualifications as a student. This year was our last final year where they finally gave us the reprieve, where this May recruit classes coming up is the last group of EMS students. Once we complete fire, we're going to send them to EMT school, that KCC will allow the students to enter without English 100 or medical terminology. So as a fire chief, what I'm preparing is a public service announcement that will go out notifying anyone that's interested in becoming a firefighter that they need to get English 100 and medical terminology. It will be part of the minimum qualifications to apply as firefighter recruit. So we're looking at the next firefighter recruit exam and process to start after the beginning of 2014. So that's why we're looking at, the process generally takes 6 months once we start to plan it. We've already started to plan that. But that's why a next recruit class will probably be on the latter part of this fiscal year.
Okay.
So we're going to be looking at funding from July 1st.
Okay, thank you. My last thing would be, because it's shorthanded, what about increasing your volunteer program, like getting more volunteers out there? Is that a possibility?
Our volunteers, the volunteer program was initiated many years ago. As you know, the HRS chapters 90-3 provides that a council member can request that a volunteer company be started and initiated. The problem we have, and once again, as alluded to, is that the startup of any volunteer company has to come with the proper funding for everything.
And how much is that? Would you know offhand, or just off?
It depends on at what level you want to be. We're currently, actually, truthfully, I can't answer that question right now because we're evaluating what our volunteer fire department really is. It started off initially as community members who we provided them an apparatus, some fire equipment, and uniform, PPE to provide the apparatus during brush fires. It's progressed to assisting with house fires. However, under the NFPA, 1500 guidelines and safety and everything, they're not allowed to enter a structure during firefighting. So with that being said, if you want the community to be properly protected, and this isn't meant to be disrespectful to our volunteers because they provide a great service, but to properly protect the community, you need a career-trained firefighter up to an NFPA standards, inclusive of having a self-contained breathing apparatus training. And it goes back to earlier startup costs of $8-point-something million for a fire station. As fire chief, I have to come before you and say, if you want to expand fire services, I'm asking for a commitment for a career fire station and career staffing.
Okay, thank you. And just to let you know that next time when you folks go to the state to try and get more funding from the EMS program, let us know. We council, we can do a resolution with aid funding too. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
I will share just on that one thought that Hawaii County was the only county that did not receive a budget reduction for EMS. So we consider that a budget increase, a win. So we're very
Thank you.
fortunate for that.
Thank you.
And I have to say that's from my EMS staff, Chief Lance Uchida down there, we do a lot of face-to-face communications with the people that make those critical decisions.
Thank you. Councilmember Elegant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How's it going, Chief?
Good.
My questions are similar to Councilmember Onishi, but first things first, you mentioned you really do it right the first time. And I just wanted to know, how would you do it right the first time for HPP, that station?
I believe Hawaiian Paradise Park needs to, once we have the property already, it's a station that needs to be built up to a standard, a quality station that can house 5 personnel on duty per day, or if needed, a minimum of the 4 per shift. So at least minimum 12 positions. And that's how it should be done. Hawaiian Paradise Park it's one of our busiest engine companies because of the area that it protects. It responds to a bunch of calls on a daily basis. A lot of it is smell of smoke because there's a lot of backyard burning going on, but it's a community-driven alarm, but it's still a response from the fire department. And we just have 2 personnel on there. Just to give you an example, if we had a critical incident going on in Hawaiian Paradise Park, say someone goes into cardiac arrest at home, and the Paradise Park truck would roll on that call, as well as, depending on where in Paradise Park, either the Ke'ao medic or Pahoa medic would respond. When the medic gets on the scene, we always provide the manpower that's needed in the best interest of the patient. So if the MICT says, I need additional manpower, that firefighter from Paradise Park's truck is going to jump on that medic and is going to assist them all the way to the hospital. That leaves that truck with just 1 personnel on board during that whole turnaround time. And what we try to do to reduce that turnaround time is we actually have the battalion chief pick up that extra person at the hospital and bring them back into the district. But that occurs very often because we do whatever we need to provide. We've even shut down the truck because we needed to put every hand into the care of that patient. Bad traumas and everything that happens in there.
Thank you. I was wondering if you know this answer. Station 1, Station 7, and Station 10, where are those located?
Okay, Station 1 is our central fire station located on Kinooli Street and Punahawai Street. Station 7 is our fire station in Kailua Kona. It's also our rescue station for the West Hawaii community. That's off of Palani Road. And what was the other?
Station 10.
Station 10 is our new Pahoa fire station right off of the highway.
The reason why I brought those up are there are over 1,000 incidents, and those were the top 3 that I saw, and that makes sense. One last question is the volunteer force. How much does it cost to run that?
Well, we have 2 volunteer training captains assigned. So and they're at a salary rate of, let's say, $90,000 annually. So that's $180,000 for the training staff there. They go out, provide the training, and basically, as far as training, it's zero cost. We don't pay the volunteers for responses or anything. The cost comes into equipment, and we're having a difficult time equipping the career stations. So we've taken very large, innovative approaches. We've reached out to the Honolulu Fire Department. We received 5 apparatus from them that they were going to give away. We took that over. 3 Class A pumpers that we're using for our training section for driver training and pumping training. But 3 2,500 gallon tankers that we placed out in our communities. We reached out to the Division of Forestry and Wildlife, the California Forestry and Wildlife, and received 5 brush truck type apparatus that just came in. We're in the process of tidying up some maintenance issues with those, and those will be going out to our volunteer companies there. There have been times where we'll say we have a volunteer company in Minalii, and I believe Minalii did not have an apparatus for over 5 years. Because basically, once the apparatus breaks down, a lot of the volunteer companies have apparatus that are 30, 40 years old. We had an apparatus 1973 still going. If you go to Pauilo, the tanker there is a 1974, I believe. A replacement, it was a brush truck that was replaced. We brought a new brush truck for the Honoka'a fire station, and the tanker that was there at Honoka'a was then given to the volunteers.
Well, thank you, Chief, for answering my questions, and thank you for your service, and also thank you for your team for doing what they do. Aloha.
Basically, you can't do anything without a solid team behind you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ford?
Thank you. Ms. Crawford, would you come forward, please? Chief, you mentioned the brush fires in Kona. I think at one point we had 3 brush fires. This was when the other chief was there, I think. You were there?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we had 3 brush fires choking the community, not to mention all of you guys.
Oh, you mean not this year's one, but yeah, we've had several years of...
So 3 at a time around Christmas time. So did you get any money transferred to you from the Disaster and Emergency Fund to help you pay for all that overtime?
I couldn't answer for those previous years. Chief Oliver was during that time. I'm not sure.
Ms. Crawford, is it possible when we have that kind of a catastrophe in wildfires going off 3 at a time, and the chief is running overtime, that we could transfer money from the Disaster and Emergency Fund over to him to cover that overtime? It was an extreme situation.
In general, we have 2 things. One is for costs, non-overtime costs, but other related costs, such as when they have to hire assistants to come out and form up bulldozers and other equipment. And we have a fund in the finance department that helps to pay for those costs.
What is it called?
It's a disaster and emergency fund. That's not the large fund. It's within the finance department.
Okay. It's what 50,000 or something?
No, it's more than that, but
not much.
Several $100,000, yeah.
Okay.
And then, though, as far as the overtime, with any of our departments and any of the unusual circumstances that they might incur, even if it's a disaster that includes, calling out highways people and police and everyone else, the first place a department looks is within their budget to cover those costs. If there is not adequate funds for them to make it through the year, then we will look at alternative ways. And ultimately, the Disaster and Emergency Fund or another operating fund might be a possibility for funding. But if they can cover it within their budget, then that's what we would expect them to do first, even though it was a disaster cost.
I understand if they can cover it in their budget, but what we're looking at right now is a budget that's too slim. I'm not blaming anybody for this. This is today looking forward. We need to add more money from someplace into the budget. And I'm concerned because we are going to have some disasters of that magnitude again, that the chief is not going to have enough money in his budget. And we will not probably hear about it. You guys will be struggling behind the scenes to cover these kinds of payments. And I am concerned about that because I see we need some significant apparatus leased. We need full-time positions, both in ocean safety and at least 13 more firefighters. And, you know, if we get hit with an emergency of that magnitude, I'm not talking your local brush fire that would get out relatively fast, but that went on for, I think, 6 weeks almost, and 3 fires simultaneously. So, and I understand the overtime situation. So is it possible, is it legal for, excuse me, strike that. Is it possible to transfer money from the disaster and emergency fund, the big one, to the chief if we get into that kind of a disaster again?
When we have excessive costs due to a disaster, we charge those costs there against the disaster and emergency fund.
Okay, yours or ours? Ours being the county.
Overall, the counties.
Not just your little one.
I think you're talking of something of the magnitude that would appropriately be charged against that fund. Then
yes.
Ultimately, if there's FEMA money that might come back in to help offset some of those costs, then, you know, we can use that to refund that. Okay. But that's the purpose of that account.
Yes, it is.
We would not use that account to just transfer funds to the chief to help with his overtime, but we make, that's our job, is to make sure he cannot, he has to live within his budget, and so we will make sure that that happens.
I understand you'll make sure he's a good kid, but that's not quite what I'm talking about. If we have a tsunami mess or a big earthquake, that's obviously where we go get the extra money that we need, and hopefully FEMA's going to give us back something like 75 or 80% on the dollar. Okay, that's very, very clear. My concern is if we have a series of disasters like we did that one Christmas season for 6 weeks, 3 brush wildfires going simultaneously, and he's running overtime to an extreme degree, can we go after that fund to get him some extra money?
We are not going after that fund to get him extra money. We will use that fund and charge expenses against it appropriately.
Okay, but
That's
you're not, okay.
I am trying to tell you, we are not going to just take $500,000 out of the fund and give it to the chief because he's had a lot of overtime. If it is necessary to charge overtime costs or other related costs because of the magnitude, that is what we will do. We'll charge them to the disaster fund.
All right, thank you. I'm not real satisfied with that answer, but I'm going to have to live with it for a minute or two anyway. Okay, thank you very much.
You know, if I can just share one thing is that our overtime is something we have been watching for several months. And I have met with Deanna Sacco. We've discussed this. I even met with Mayor Kinoy just about 2.5 weeks ago, and we're well aware of our overtime budget was exhausted for very good reasons. And I'm well aware that, you know, when the discussion was, what do we do if we have a large incident? And that is an area that we was, and I was made clear that the billing would be provided for that. Then same as Nancy just said, it wouldn't be where they would give us, here's $500,000, is how much did this incident cost? And then that billing would be sent to them. And we do that. For example, we get a large brush fire, our bulldozing cost is sent to the Department of Finance, any extra helicopters that we hire. So it's something that we have been in discussion for. And I will say that we're watching our overtime as far as non-emergency overtime issues. But well aware, we're working with the mayor and finance as far as hopefully nothing happens in the next several months. But if it does, I think we're prepared to provide the services that we need.
I guess I'm just not stating what I'm trying to ask correctly, because I don't expect you to hand $500,000 to the chief, but when he's running the overtime that I know we ran during those 3 brush fires, and I know that his budget is so tight, I just want him to be able to use for the fund And I'm not quite hearing that, except for maybe bulldozers. I'm uncomfortable with the answer. I'm not saying you're wrong, because I really don't know. But I'm concerned about this. I'm not trying to give him just chunks of money to have a wonderful time with or have parties or anything like that. It's when we run excessive overtime during a catastrophe of some type.
But we're the only.
If his budget is getting.
I am just trying to say that based on the circumstances at any given time, we are going to make a judgment about the appropriate way to deal with funding those costs.
Okay, I'm not going to go any farther. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Willie?
Nancy?
It's Deanna's.
Okay, Deanna. Okay, so if we wanted to move $1 million over there right now, if we, Brenda, stop shaking your head. I'm asking, we have if we wanted to get a jump on this situation, and we have a fund balance, and if we wanted to do a moving whatever sum over there right now, how would we carry that out? How?
I'm sorry, are you talking about
between
right now?
Yeah.
That would be a budget amendment. We would initiate that budget amendment if we felt it was necessary.
Okay.
And at this point, we don't feel it's necessary.
And if we felt it was necessary and we wanted to urge that, we could urge you
I would urge you to speak with us about it and identify the exact reasons. We work very closely with these folks. We aren't trying to make anyone
No, I know you're not.
Operate without adequate funds. And in fact, in certain cases, we expect departments to live with their budget. If there are circumstances beyond their control, in this case, I don't think we have had some large, disasters going on that are what are contributing to the chief's issues regarding his overtime. But we're working very closely with him right now on a daily basis, pretty much, on their budget.
I appreciate it. I think when you say, though, their budget, you're talking about what's coming up for the next.
I'm talking about their current
budget.
Operating. They live with a current operating budget, and their expenditures need to fit within that budget. And if there are circumstances beyond their control, we obviously will work with them and see about if we need to come to the council and transfer funds, or if there needs to be some budgetary amendment. I, at this point, don't think that's necessary.
Okay. And I just find often we respond where there's something acute, a big disaster, and we respond. And we don't necessarily are good at where there's cumulative impact that rises to a certain level, and that's just what I'm looking. And I don't know whether that's the case or not, but I do think, based on just my perception of what I'm observing, that that may be the case. I don't want to hear that there are people that are good people that are quitting before June, that we're stretching too thin, or how are we, whether it's at Hapuna or any of these other places, that we're risking an accident that will endanger us. I want to be supportive as quickly as possible. And I'm not trying to put this department in any higher position than any others, but I do think that, as we've all said, safety is critical, and we don't want to look back and just say, why didn't we do something sooner? So I'm not trying to be critical of you. I just really don't know. What is our capacity? Are we capable of doing that? And I don't see why not. But,
Well, I'm
so I may be out of line. I don't know. I'm just sort of moving on what seems like a gut reaction. Let's just do something now and start the ball rolling and not waiting till, July.
Okay. Two things. One is that I would like to make the point, I was speaking about, we've been working with that department. We have analyzed their salary and wages accounts, and based on that analysis, determined that they do have adequate funds to make it through the balance of this year, through June 30. to respond to your other.
But just finishing that for the current level of service, So I just want to qualify where I might see a different level of service should be in place as opposed to what the current one is. So I do appreciate, I understand what you're saying.
Okay. And my only comment would be then that mid-year to give them an extra $1 million of money for their operations that aren't currently in their budget means that money has to come from somewhere.
Right.
And we are already in a very tight year. We would not tell you that we have any available fund balance to
Okay, well, we
apply
could
to
fight
that
about
account.
that.
Yeah,
But anyway, okay.
we can't.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilmember Onishi?
Thank you. No, Nancy, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I kind of understand what Ms. Ford and Ms. Willie is mentioning is that, listening to what the chief just mentioned to us about, shortage of manpower, equipment and so forth, and that his supplemental request is going to be coming in, or he's doing it right now to us, saying that, okay, this is what he would like to see or what he would like, needed for the department. And so, like what Ms. Willie, I think, is saying is that if there is any extra funds for this fiscal, that to start the ball rolling is to get some money back to the fire department so that they can start getting their process, like getting more manpower or even getting more equipment or apparatuses. For me, listening to what's happening and especially at Punaluu Beach Park, I mean, we need to fund that because of the risks for the tourists, for even the local people out there. We know there's a problem. And so we need to try and fix it. I know we cannot save everything, but we got to start someplace. Okay, we got to start moving forward. So that's the only thing that I kind of, I'm listening to discussion, and I mean listening to you too, and I understand about that, the emergency fund. You folks compensate them for whatever expenses that isn't under their so-called budget, correct? Like for extra bulldozers or whatever.
Right. We take care of certain costs,
Right.
and other costs they may be absorbing within their budget.
Right, and I can understand that. That's why that fund is there for. But like manpower and so forth, we cannot use that fund. So it needs to come from someplace else. And so I think that's where, maybe finance you folks can try and find some money, or if you want to leave it up to the council to find it, or to use a revenue source to help them. That's what we're going to have to do, right? So I would rather see the funding coming from you folks finding the funds to help them. At least, to me, $500,000. That's what I'm looking at, at least trying to help them in the next budget to increase $500,000. So that way they can maybe lease 2 apparatus trucks, and then also to trying to fund those positions at Punaluu. But that's the thing that I, is trying to help out the fire department. You can respond.
I totally support trying to help out the fire department, especially as you're talking about the next year budget. And the chief has certainly made clear what he needs.
Right.
And yes, we cut funds away from them beyond, not only did he not get his supplemental request, he lost some of his basic request. And he's not alone. He's public safety, but we didn't do that lightly. And there will need to be revenue to provide for additional budget.
Right, and I understand that.
And we can perhaps, I don't think in the middle of the departmental budgets is probably the best time to have a fund balance discussion, but we can have that, at whatever point. I mean, we can do that right now if you like, but I would say that we have, in terms of next year's budget, we've been very aggressive in what we have budgeted for use of fund balance compared with what we start with an availability of, and what we might expect to be able to generate this year. We are already in a tight budget. We have a department that's struggling to live with their budget right now, that doesn't generate a lot of fund balance at the end of the year to start escalating fund balance as a way to fix next year's budget and provide for more expenses.
Okay, well, thank you. I mean, I'm hoping that you folks maybe can find some leftover money just to help them out. I mean, and I know police going to be coming in and they're going to be requesting the same thing too, so maybe you might have to find another 500 for police too. But thank you. Okay, and Chief, I just wanted to tell you thank you very much for all your support and your staff for Kaulani, relocating Kaulani's, fire station. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just wanted to emphasize before Nancy leaves is that, I came into a very close cabinet with Welcome Arms, and we do work very closely together. All of the other departments is affected by anything that I do. If we take away from Office of Aging, that's services that now impacts our 911 system. Parks and Recreation, keeping the kids off of the street. Just looking at the wonderful gym that was provided in Pana Eva and everything there, keeping the kids active keeps them out of trouble. We've seen a reduction in our arsonists of our abandoned buildings. So all of the departments, it ties into public safety as well. And I don't want to see, as much as I'd like to have the gold, I don't want it to come at the expense of any other department, because we are all tied in together and we're all working together. And I must say that I'm very grateful for what has been provided to our department in such struggling fiscal times. I mean, we went through no apparatus in over a decade to 5 in just this past year. I am very grateful for what has been presented, and I do know it's tough. And as far as the budget, I am, as a department head, in charge of operating within my means and making those critical decisions. We ran lean this last couple of years so that we wouldn't have to close down stations that there's commissioners that come to me and says, hey, I look at the call volume for this station, maybe you should start looking at this. But I cannot go to a community and say we're going to shut down. I think we should just start to improve the services there.
Thank you.
But I am grateful about what we've gotten.
Thank you. And Councilmember Ford has a quick question. So I'm going to allow the quick question. Okay.
The mayor's outside. I'm sure he wants to come in here and smack me for the comment on the furloughs, but I still think it's a possibility. I'm going to ask him to come in because he wants to beat me.
Bring him up.
No. This is all love and aloha.
Yeah. Well, I'm not getting love and aloha regarding furloughs here.
Councilwoman, the bottom line is furloughs.
Oh, we need you on the mic, sir.
Thank you, Nancy.
I took some hits here, Mayor.
No, furloughs not going to happen.
Okay, that's all we need to hear.
Very simply, it's collective bargaining is negotiations amongst 4 chief executives of the mayors of each county, as well as the governor. The governor possesses 4 votes. Each of the mayors have 1.
Okay.
We see 2 of our agencies represented by their employee representatives, police and fire, both in arbitration. We expect awards to be issued shortly. We have sat with our finance team, are prepared for a myriad of contingencies, depending on what happens. These are decisions out of our control. With regards to HGA and UPW, as the Chief mentioned, the impact, I don't believe and I don't support any further employee furloughs. Our employees have done so much, and they've made sacrifices, made reductions. 2 years ago, they made a 9.25% reduction. That's a big give back for struggling working families who serve the public with commitment and respect and dignity. So we're not in support of employee furloughs going forward. And in fact, even if there was some people who wanted furloughs to continue, me not being one of them as a chief executive, because I've seen the sacrifices and the impact on our working families, there wouldn't be the cooperation or political will statewide to make it happen. And so the realistic answer is that no employee furloughs will end. The $4.2 million that is going into the budget to address that 1 day a month furlough, we still have that amount. This year's furlough savings is in the budget stabilization fund. And that's sitting there. And so We don't feel it's necessary. Other revenue and choices might have to be made, but putting any more burden on the shoulders of our hardworking employees is not the answer.
All right. Thank you for saying that, Mayor. I've been beat up plenty on this one, and
No, I
everyone
don't
will
believe
take,
that. Chief
everybody,
Rosario, a more
everybody
respectful
will
young
breathe a
man
sigh of
representing
relief.
us. Not possible. Nancy has
Right
never
there
beat up
wasn't
a
for
single
beat up,
living
yeah.
thing in her entire life.
Yeah.
But
Great sigh
thanks,
of
you
relief.
guys.
Thank you,
Mahalo.
Mayor. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
A great sigh of relief for everyone, and my idea went into the tank, not to worry about it. All right,
idea-
we'll work on some other stuff. Thank you very much, Chairwoman.
Thank you. So, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
And we're going to take a 10-minute recess to prepare for our planning department. So we...
Public Works.
I mean, Public Works. We did planning. I'm sorry, Public Works. So 10-minute recess. Thank you.
God, this is